Happy opening day. The Rays are at Steinbrenner Field. It's just the way they planned it. Well, not exactly, because of the visiting team. You know, this is how it gets confusing because it's still the Yankees complex, but it's going to be their home field for the season, but they got to go to the visiting clubhouse, although that's the clubhouse they always go to in spring training when they go there. I don't know.
Are they just checking out their new digs? Is it a scouting mission or something? Or?
That's what it feels like, right? Feels like, hey, let's take a walk around, you know, look at the distance of the fences and get used to the mound and playing outdoors, all that.
Although I'm pretty sure it's the first spring training game on the road. There's not many of the players that are going on this trip that will actually be on the opening day roster.
And that's because it's a long bus ride. It's a long. How early do you got to get up, do you think, to get up to from Port Charlotte up here?
It's a 1 o'clock game. They probably want the bus to arrive about 10:30.
So I'm thinking you probably got to be at the facility in Port Charlotte, about 7:30.
Yeah, but that's normally. Spring training. You normally go.
Yeah, it's early anyway, right? Yeah,
they go in early because they want to be done for the day. If you're not playing, and go play golf.
That's a good point.
So all the spring training workouts are generally early.
Okay, so not that much earlier, or you just got to endure the 2-hour bus ride, I guess.
Yeah, well, like I said, most of the guys making the bus ride are the ones that are going to be making bus rides most of the year.
Come on, man. You got to bring somebody to the Yankees for opening day, don't you?
I'm not sure the Yankees are bringing anybody to the game.
It's true. They'll at least be living in town, you know. Aaron Judge is somewhere around here right now. Probably at a restaurant in downtown Tampa. But a lot of those guys live here, too, in the offseason since they train here, right? They have homes.
Yes.
Yeah. That was always the case. Jorge Posada and Derek Jeter and all those guys used to live down here, so. Yeah, but hey, we finally got games to talk about. Not really not the game I love. I know it's just practice, man. But we'll get to see some, some young arms on the mound and guys getting their at bats and their swings in. And spring training is way too long, in my opinion. I think there was usefulness for it back in the 50s and 60s when guys had to work other jobs to supplement their income because they only played baseball in the summer.
And they came in way out of shape.
Oh, yeah. Oh, totally. Yeah. And this was what they used. It was spring training because you had to get into training shape. My dad, who I talk about a lot on this podcast for whatever reason, was a professional baseball player. And his non-baseball playing job when he was in the St. Petersburg area, Tampa, St. Pete, was at the dog track. And I was like, well, what'd you do? He goes, well, I walk the dogs. What? He goes, well, you got to take them to the starting gate and so on and so forth. And so sure enough, there's like a picture of him with a greyhound. I was like, well, that doesn't sound like a bad job, right? And didn't get paid a lot, obviously, but you probably had some inside scoop about which dog to bet on.
Too bad does his business.
Yeah, that's exactly right. But yeah, back in the day, they used to have to get in shape, and now, of course, they work out year round.
Well, that's why football has 2-a-days and 3-a-days. Back in the day, it was all getting them into shape.
Yeah, it definitely was.
Yeah, it's like why hockey has morning skates is because the coach didn't want the players out drinking the whole night before.
Well, and there's still some of that too with football.
Mm-hmm.
This is the weirdest thing to me about football has always been this. Okay, so you got a home game, right?
Mm-hmm.
We finally get a home game. Don't have to travel. Home field advantage. Playing in Raymond James. Other teams got to come down here, probably from, some colder climate, put up with the, 110 heat index. You're used to it, blah, blah, blah. But on Saturday night, you have to leave the comfort of your home, okay? You're a grown-ass man. You're a professional football player. You have to leave your home, say good night to the wife and your children, pack it up, get a nice overnight bag, toothbrush, all that, and go to a hotel, which you can imagine is one of the better ones in Tampa Bay, not far from the stadium, International Plaza. And you have to check in and have meetings at night and then bed check and then go to sleep and then get up the next morning. Many of them would then drive home, hang out for a while, see the wife, whatever, and then drive to the stadium for the game. Does that make any sense to you as a grown man whose only job is to perform 3 hours? I mean, obviously you practice during the week, but you go home after practice. But for the pregame, the night before a game, you have to leave your home because you can't give them 3 solid hours without, going out on a Saturday night and staying out all night. Is
Well,
that crazy to you?
no, because there's still a lot of guys on these teams that are 21 and 22 years old. I mean, I remember those days, and if I had to work the next day, that one's going to stop me.
But you're a professional athlete.
I realize that. I remember, this is a long time ago, but there was a Sunday game where the Bengals should have got their butts whooped. Instead, Corey Dillon set the rushing mark for yards in a game against the Denver Broncos, which had a really good defense.
Yeah.
And I could have told you before that game that was going to happen because I saw most of that Denver defense out at the bar at 4 a.m.
So you're saying they didn't have a curfew, or they just broke it?
Because I wasn't performing very well on that day either when running the broadcast. They weren't.
That had to be an epic show for you as well. Yeah. But see, it doesn't matter if we go out. Well, I mean, it kind of matters, right? Like,
it matters, but it's not necessarily publicly.
Well, yeah. I mean, no one's going to necessarily recognize you, although they would recognize me at this point. But no, I think it's just, yeah, you're right. And listen, Super Bowl lore is filled with guys, even for a Super Bowl, especially Super Bowl. Stanley Wilson in Miami.
Yeah. Yep.
The famous Bengals one where they couldn't find him. And when they did find him, it was not in a good place. It was not. He was not able to play. Let's see, what was it? Oh, the Bucs Super Bowl. Who was the center?
Barrett Robbins.
Yes, Barrett Robbins. So the game is in San Diego, as we all know, Super Bowl 37. And that's a couple miles from Tijuana across the border.
Mm-hmm.
And on the night before the game, Barrett Robbins, who it turns out had some, mental imbalance, that he was not manic depressive, he's something like that. But he went down to Tijuana, and he was missing like everything, missed curfew. They didn't know where he was till the next morning, right? And he didn't play in the game. And I don't know that the Bucs, with their 5 interceptions, would have lost. But it was a factor in the game. Like, it really was. Like, they, a few teams have backup centers that are as good as the starter. But can you imagine the biggest game of your life, the Super Bowl, and you go down there, get hammered, and you're in a different country, for God's sakes, and you can't make it back for the Super Bowl.
No, but that's what addiction and some of these demons and people have. I mean, it's.
So you're saying I'm answering my own question now?
Well,
kind of.
Yeah, a little bit.
It's still like, I wasn't the most responsible guy, really, and probably still aren't. But I still think that if I just had to make it for 3 hours, and give all I have for those 3 hours, that I think the night before I would feel more comfortable, and frankly, the people around me would make sure that I didn't do something stupid, right? A wife, family, whatever. Typically you have people from out of town. Now there is some positive to that, right? Because a lot of times you're playing at home, right? And then here comes the family, right? And the extended family, and then the tickets, and they're all at your house, right? And so, that can get a little, loud too, and you probably just want to get out and go to a hotel. But what happened was, and I could look this up, but I don't feel like it. There was somebody in the NFL, don't know who, let's call him Vince Lombardi, but there was somebody who decided, I'm going to take my players the night before a home game, and I'll put them in a hotel, and then the next day they went out on Sunday and they kicked the crap out of somebody. And then every team said, that's what we got to do, right? That's what we got to do. We got to lock these guys down, make sure that they're in good shape. Now, the one thing they are practicing and have for as long as I've covered the NFL is that Saturday practice, which is, it's a lighter practice. It's more of a walkthrough than anything. Because at that point, you practice hard in pads on Wednesday, a little less on Thursday, a little less on Friday. And then Saturday is, just the final touches. And every day is a different thing, right? You have install, third down situations. Friday might be red zone, 2 minute, that sort of thing. But you need all those days, and so but you get to Saturday, it's the shortest practice, and what they will do and have always done is that practice is god early, right? It's like by 9:30 you have to be on the field. By 9 a.m. or 8:45, you got to be in a meeting room, and they do that intentionally. They do it because those guys are at home for the last night of the home game, and they don't want them going out on Friday night either.
Yep.
And more than a few players have shown up late, not in good shape. I remember, I think Austin Safarian-Jenkins was one of the guys they sent home because he was intoxicated when he arrived one Saturday, I believe.
Well, this year, and we don't know about any of those circumstances, but Jordan Whitehead was late.
Jordan Whitehead was running late, and he was doing heading south on Dale Mabry, which is the direction I would go. And he was supposed to be in a meeting and on the field by 9:30. And at 9:30, according to police report, Jordan Whitehead was doing 80 miles an hour down Dale Mabry heading south, made a turn onto Martin Luther King Boulevard, and there was a car sitting there at the light, at a red light. He lost control of his Corvette and hit this guy head on. And I'm here to tell you, both of them went to the hospital. It's when you look at that accident, it's amazing that somebody didn't get killed, right? And he heretofore was always a very responsible guy, but again, and I don't know what he did the night before. It doesn't matter. But running late, speeding, trying to get there, and again, morning practice, and that's why they do it, because they want a head count. They want to want guys to be responsible the night before. So, yeah, I answered my own question.
Well, right. And when you answer, I mean, my wife has done HR for years.
Yeah,
you'd be amazed how many people fail a drug test, knowing days earlier that they're going to have a drug test to get a job, and they fail it.
And that shows a real addiction problem, right? I mean, it's bigger than anything they can control, and that's and look, that's part of it, and part of it is, like you said, the age thing. You got a lot of 22-year-old, 23-year-old. If you think back to what we were doing then,
you think you're invincible. Like do. It don't matter if I come hungover the next day. I'm fine. I'm 21. I'm 22. I'm 23.
Right. But when you really break down the NFL season, right, you're going to play 3 hours once a week. You know what I'm saying? Like, the practice matters and all that. I get it. But 3 hours. And then if you break it down further, right, the average play lasts about, 5 seconds, right? And
yes, but for some of those players, it's a car wreck every play.
Well, it is. It can be, but yeah, but
some of that stuff is medicinal too, almost. Not all the partying and stuff, but there's some of it's self-medicating.
Maybe. I don't know that you're going to show up that way, but I mean, maybe.
No.
Yeah. And there's been guys that have gotten into trouble with with stuff they had to take, and remember Brett Favre and the certain things that he had to go through to play every week, and he never missed a game. But yeah, it's but if you really break it down, it's like 3 hours. The average play is 4, 5, 6 seconds. If you play on one side of the ball, you might have 55 to 65 snaps, right? 70 on a really good day. So how much real time are we talking here to go full out? But then again, like you said, it's the NFL. These guys are monsters. They all have bad intentions. It's not a pleasant evening. And that's another reason why I think you'd want to always be at your best. But we've had plenty of examples. I mean, and I don't know what he was doing, but like Greg Schiano was one of his first games. We go to I want to say it was the Jets or the Giants. We were up in New York, I think, and they, the other thing they would do is on Saturday morning, even though they had the players on the road in the hotel, bed check, all that, they would make players go downstairs at 8 a.m., 7, 8 a.m., and even if they weren't eating breakfast, they'd have to sign their name, right? You had to go downstairs to where the breakfast was. They didn't care if you took back a bagel or not. But you had to go downstairs between the breakfast hours, whatever it was, 8 to 10 or whatever, and check in. And that was to, again, affirm that, hey, you know that guy that we checked in on at 11:30? He's still here.
Yep.
You know, like we didn't lose him. He came down at 8 a.m., signed his name, went back upstairs, and that was one of Josh Freeman's big foibles. Was Greg Schiano was the new sheriff in town. He was a little red in the neck, and Josh did not make it down to sign in on breakfast, and then I think he might have even missed the last bus. So
I think it was Scotty Bowman, and there's probably been others, and I'm trying to remember, who I've heard these stories from and what, but when they were on the road, Bowman would leave a hockey stick at the front desk and have them ask any players that came in late to sign it.
Okay.
Like they were a fan getting autographs, except that was really who came in after curfew.
And so that was just like confirmation that you weren't on time. You
basically.
Missed curfew.
I don't know what the punishment was or whatever else, but it was
he took that stick, and you know what he did with that stick. He beat those guys.
I think it was Scotty Bowman. I'm trying to remember. You hear so many stories over the years, but
yeah.
But yeah, we'll leave a stick there so that the front desk people would then ask for your autograph.
Right. By far, let me just you've covered baseball. You probably did more baseball than I ever will do. Baseball, hockey, football. Who are the more baseball's every day. Hockey's like 3 times a week. On the road, who are the more rambunctious athletes? Do you think?
Well, I think baseball is a little different in that you're usually not showing up to the park till 2-3 o'clock the next day.
Yeah, that's true.
And you're in a city for 3 days at a time.
Yeah.
So it's a little different in that regard.
You put down some roots.
Yeah, I mean,
sleep in.
But you also know that, and I think the stat got foiled at the very end of the season, but for almost the whole season, the first year Vegas was in the league in the NHL.
Yeah.
Any team.
Oh, I remember
that didn't come into Vegas on a back-to-back, the second half of back-to-back, lost.
They lost, yeah.
The Vegas flu.
It was an incredible streak, yeah.
Yeah.
And I always thought that, and in fact, I knew the Miami Heat had that advantage too.
Mm-hmm.
They definitely had that advantage because South Beach was open until 6 a.m.
Yep.
So, yeah, I mean,
football's so different because you're only on the road, 8 times a year,
you
9
might
times
have
a
8,
year.
9 trips a year, yeah.
You're in and out so quick.
Yeah, you spend the least amount of time.
Hockey, basketball, baseball, you have road trips. Like,
sure.
You're on the road for a week at a time or more sometimes. And
sure.
And you have off nights on the road and stuff. Like,
yeah.
If you have an off night on the road, like, go ahead. Like, you're young, go ahead. You should have fun. Like, there's nothing wrong
you
with
got to
that.
let off steam. I mean, I get all that. Believe me, I do. And listen, not for nothing. I've been coming in late. I can remember a trip. I won't name names. I can remember a trip to San Diego. You got time difference, right?
Mm-hmm.
All that going for you. And my wife and I had met a couple out there that she'd gone to college with, and they moved to San Diego. So we were out, had a late dinner, and went someplace, and just had a kind of a long evening, but it was more about catching up than anything else. I mean, we weren't carousing or partying all that hard. But we managed to come in. It was well after midnight. It's probably after 1 a.m. Probably, and that's Pacific time, which means, back here it's like 4:30, and we're coming in the hotel, and 2 coaches are walking out, assistant coaches, and like, hey, where you guys going? It's early, man. It's like, no, it's not early. It's almost 2 a.m. Oh yeah, come on out. And I was just like, wow. Like, I really didn't expect this. Hopefully the players are in bed, but okay, they're going out. The next day, the position of those coaches got destroyed. Now, I'm not saying there's a causal relationship here, but at the end of the day, we looked at each other and went, well, that makes sense. So it's not limited to, to just players. But anyway, there was a story that I wanted to talk about here. And it involves a Buccaneer, and this is a bad story about burglaries that have happened throughout the NFL with some players, and we'll get to that in just a second. But first, I want to remind you guys, hey, get on down to Breitling Boutique International Plaza Mall. Listen, there's so many of you out there that swung and missed on Valentine's Day, or maybe you never even got to the plate, right? Like you just completely like zeroed it. Okay. There's a chance to make up for that. Okay. Go to Breitling Boutique, International Plaza Mall. Check out the watches that they have for your wife, for your girlfriend. Beautiful sports watches, all kinds of colors, wristbands. These things are durable. If your wife is like mine, she's on the go, she's banging it around with the kids and everything. They're going to hold up and look absolutely beautiful. And then maybe you forgot to buy your husband or your boyfriend something. Well, they got the beautiful Chronomat watches down there, the Navitimers. Now, right now, they still have a limited edition of the NFL 104th year anniversary watches, all 32 teams represented in a limited edition. You can get these team watches. They have the team colors on the face, the team logo. But the Chronomat watches, I mean, they're gorgeous to begin with, and that's kind of what they're known for. It's Breitling Boutique. You're going to love the store. It's in the middle of the mall, upstairs, that center area, and the customer service is second to none. They're used to dealing with pro athletes. You'll probably see a Buccaneer or two in there if you go enough, and they're going to treat you like a celebrity that you are as well. Go in, have a drink, make yourself a drink, look around. They'll tell you all about the watches, and you're going to leave there very happy. It's Breitling Boutique, International Plaza Mall. Make sure you let them know that you heard about it on Sports Day Tampa Bay. We got some mailbag questions coming up here in just a second, but first I wanted to hit this story that I saw on the wire. And of course, we remember it wasn't long ago that there was a story involving like Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce. Joe Burrow was the first one I remember with the Bengals.
Mm-hmm.
And their homes were burglarized, and it was scary for Joe Burrow because I believe his girlfriend might have been in the dwelling at the time or shortly thereafter. But there were a bunch of men arrested, 7 men, in fact, from Chile were arrested, and they were caught in Ohio at the time, and with Burrow's stuff in tow that they found on them, and so they were arrested. But turns out that there was a bunch of those burglaries that didn't just involve those guys, but also involved some NBA's Milwaukee Bucks players, some Memphis Grizzlies, and oh, by the way, players, multiple from the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And
what?
yeah, unnamed, of course, but according to the complaint, it was part of a burglary ring that is known to target high-profile professional athletes when they are known to be away from home. And of course, this is something that I've always struggled with was, when you have a job like a professional athlete, like, at least your whereabouts are pretty much accounted for, right? Everybody has a schedule. They know when you're out of town. They know when you're playing, right? And so who knows who's at home watching your stuff. But they allegedly stole about $2 million of watches and jewelry and other valuables, including a safe that they later cracked. They took a safe out of a house and they later opened that up. Thankfully, no one was was injured during these episodes. But man, it's really scary. And the thing about the Buccaneers situation, and I guess it said there were a couple, is that according to the FBI and some of the stuff they recovered, there was $167,000 that was stolen from allegedly stolen from a Buccaneers property, Tampa Bay Buccaneer players' property, and it included a Rolex watch, a Louis Vuitton suitcase, jewelry, and a gun, which is everything they take on the road except the gun part. But $167,000 from a player, and there were several. There was several players, but one unnamed Tampa Bay Buccaneer, and that's horrific in and of itself. My question, I guess, would be, and look, guys, if guys are motivated to break into your house, they're going to break into your house, right? They know what they're after. They know where to look. They're going to get in and out. I get all that. But I'm just wondering, like, what is the security for these guys? If I've got $167,000 of valuables in my home, and I don't know that I do right now, but if I did, man, I swear to God, I'd have the best security in the world. Like if a window broke, it would like alert Dobermans that would attack you or something. I'd have, the lights would come on, the sirens would blow, Officer Friendly would be there in 10 seconds. Like, I don't know what would happen, but something would happen. Right. And apparently these guys were fairly crude about it. Like they didn't, they weren't shutting down any alarm systems. They were just breaking windows and jumping through sliding glass doors with crowbars. Right.
Well, I guess even if you do that, I mean, even if you have a security system, if you're in and out quick enough.
If you're in and out, you can get away with it. Yeah, that's true. That's true. And at the end of the day, they were identifiable. So I guess security worked, right, at some point, because they were able to identify these guys once they caught them on the road. But yeah, that's awful, man. And it's always been a thing. Like if you live a very public life, people know where you are, right? And your families, might be with you in tow, or they may be at home, and they know you're not there. Like that's a scary situation. So glad they got him. And the charges were filed in Tampa January 30th. And it's like I said, it was a bunch of defendants. Doesn't say whether they were U.S. citizens or not, but they're identified as Chilean in the charging documents. But yeah, pretty scary, man. All right, we got some mailbag questions. We can get to them now.
The Dynasty Grill had tweeted us. This is from Allie. Says, longtime listener from the UK. Your podcast is a staple of my morning routine. Keep up the great work. Question about the Bucs. What does success look like in 2025 for the Bucs? It's shaping up to be a huge year. Last year of Mike Evans' deal and Baker in a friendly enough deal.
Well, they've set a standard with the Bucs, and they have to at least meet the standard and hopefully exceed it. The standard is to get into the postseason and most likely or preferably win the division. Okay, they've done that 4 years in a row. They've been to the postseason 5 years in a row, which is more than any team in the NFC, okay, including the Philadelphia Eagles. And so that's the standard. So you have to start with that, right? You have to start with the fact that whether you win the division or you're a wild card, that you make the tournament, okay? Preferably a division winner, which gets you a home game, which means that if you win that game, you're playing in the divisional championship, and you're 60 minutes from playing for a conference championship, which is what they did 2 years ago when they beat the Philadelphia Eagles at home, then went to Detroit and they lost to the Lions, but that game was tied into the fourth quarter. It was anybody's game, ended up last possession, and Baker Mayfield was intercepted. So at minimum, I think you have to, success has to at the very least, emulate that, right? Conference championship or division championship, playoff berth at minimum. Then I think my expectation or their expectation, and of course Todd Bowles got up there and said, hey, if we're not thinking Super Bowl this year, we're wasting our time. And every team talks about that, and they all, they're all 0-0, and they all talk about winning a Super Bowl. But realistically, we've done this exercise before. There's about, I don't know, 4 to 5, maybe on the outside 6 teams that can win a Super Bowl, right? And maybe about 6 to 8 teams you go, yeah, it could go to one. I think the Bucs are one of those teams. Now, not as they sit here today. As they sit here today, they don't have enough juice to get to the Super Bowl. They don't. They've got to get some major pieces on defense. They need a game wrecker on an edge rusher. They got to have at least one, maybe 2. Now, that might be Chris Braswell developing. That might be a trade. That might be a free agent signing. It could be a draft pick. But they absolutely have to find a game wrecker that can rush the passer from the edge, okay? And then they need an inside linebacker. Whether Levante David retires or doesn't, you're going to get Savasier Dennis back, but you've got to have, somebody in the middle of that defense that can cover, that can tackle. And then you need your stars to be your stars. Antoine Winfield Jr. has to come back to the guy he was when he became the highest paid defensive back in football, when he filled up a stat sheet every single game. He's got to come back to that. Jordan Whitehead did not fulfill his promise last year. He's got to be that guy that he was with the Jets, and maybe even going back to the Bucs Super Bowl year where he's a thumper inside, but he also has some ball skills. Like there were a bunch of guys that did not play up to their standards, right? And the defense has a long way to go. And, it's about players, not plays. So they've got to find players, and they've got to do it comprehensively, free agency, draft, trades, whatever you have to do. I think the window is there for them. I think it's there for them this year. I think it's there for them next year because Baker Mayfield is under contract for those 2 years. And to me, he's demonstrated he can take you a long way. It's a coach quarterback league. A lot of people down on Todd Bowles. A lot of people thought that if he didn't win his last 2 games, that Liam Cohen is the coach of this team right now. Maybe not. But there's a window closing on Todd Bowles as well. And there's been better coaches than him get fired, and they got fired even though they made the playoffs every year. Tony Dungy being the one that comes to mind. He made the playoffs 4 out of 6 years, and he couldn't get them over the hump. He got fired. John Gruden came in and won a Super Bowl, in no small part because of the team that Dungy had built, especially on defense. But John added the offense and some players there, and they won it all. So this is a big year for everybody. But I think that they're a team, when you can score 29.5 points a game with a first-year coordinator calling plays, and you've got some continuity now with Josh Grizzard taking over. To me, this is like the first time. I don't know, Baker Mayfield's had 8 offensive coordinators in 8 NFL seasons, and now he gets to start the offseason without a bunch of install and play new playbooks and new players and all this. So, you should be able to pick up where you left off at the end of the season, which was pretty good offensively, and go from there. So if they do that and they fortify that defense, which wasn't bad after the bye week, some of that was based on the opponent, they should be not just a playoff contender, not just maybe a division champion, but a team that goes beyond the first round. They should win a wild card round if they have to play one at all. Of course, you could get a higher seed, maybe get a bye. But you look at the NFC, and the Eagles are sitting on top of the mountain, and I don't see that team going anywhere. I think they're going to be back there again. I think Detroit's going to be back there again. They get Aiden Hutchinson back. Saw him running the other day on the video, and so there's a lot of really tough teams at the top, and there'll be others that emerge. But to me, the Bucs are right there. They're right there, and they've just got to get some key pieces on defense. Let some of those other players grow up. I still think there's more from Yaya Diaby. I still think there's more from Kalijah Cansey. We know that Winfield can play. They need a corner. If Jamel Dean's not going to be back, we don't know yet, but he's missed a lot of games because of injuries. I like Zion McCallum. You need some pieces over there, but I don't know why you wouldn't pick them to win the division again. I know Carolina should be a little better with Bryce Young, and Dave Canales in their second year. We don't know what New Orleans will do. Derek Carr, that's an older team. They're losing a lot of their better players, to age, and especially on the offensive side, it's not been very good. And then Atlanta's going to be their biggest rival. Atlanta's a team that can score points. They've got to shore up the defense. It's a big year for Raheem Morris. They fired their defensive coordinator, Jimmy Lake, which was his good friend. So to me, the Bucs, success to them looks like a division championship, looks like advancing through the playoffs, and hopefully at minimum to an NFC championship game.
Rob had emailed. It says, "Hi, guys. Thanks again for the great podcast. I listen almost every day. I think it's the best way to stay informed on Tampa Bay area sports. I'm a Todd Bowles supporter. I feel he's a great defensive game planner, and his ability really helped keep us in games despite the plethora of injuries and lack of a true alpha edge rusher. I also recognize his need to improve on clock management and game theory, i.e. the benefit of going for it on fourth down or going for the 2-point conversion in Kansas City. What do you think the chances of him improving in these areas? Do you think the Glazers and or Jason Light will be telling him he needs to go for it more on fourth down like many NFL coaches do?"
I hope so. I think Todd is committed to growing. I remember last year we went to Jacksonville for the joint workouts up there. It'd be interesting when they have those this year if they do. But we went up to Jacksonville, and I noticed that Todd spent all his time on the offensive side. Never went over to his defense, right? And he's the defensive play caller. He let, Larry Foote and Casey Rogers and those guys run that. He spent his entire week, it was 3 days, standing next to Liam Cohen and others, watching their offense. And I thought, well, that's odd. Like I would expect him to, he's the defensive play caller. And then when we talked to him, he said, look, I'm trying to I know how to stop an offense, right? I've done this my whole life. I've been a defensive coordinator, but I need to hear the conversations over there. I need to understand the why, And he goes, if I stop growing as a coach, then I'm done. I learn stuff every year. I want to get better. And he does. He really does. And he commits himself to it. And so for that reason, I think Todd will be better this year than he was last year. But you raise a good point. And I would strongly encourage Todd Bowles to look at where the NFL is headed, right? And you can do all the analytics. If you don't like analytics or you think it's a tool and you're not a complete buy into that stuff, that's fine. I don't really give a damn. But here's the thing. Read the room, okay? Read the room, because what you're seeing now are a lot of teams that are going to make you stop them 4 times instead of 3, right? They're going to go for it on 4th down. If they get anywhere close to midfield, hell, sometimes if they don't, they're going to go for it on 4th down. And I think in today's NFL, and he should know this because he's on the other side, but these teams are becoming crazy aggressive, right? They're putting a ton of pressure on the defense. Hell, you can't tackle them, you can't hit them, you can't, target them. Like, there's so many. The rules are so slanted in the offensive, advantage. But to me, I think you have to have a mentality, and I like what Dan Campbell's done. Now, it may have cost him a Super Bowl, right? Because he may have gone with it too much when they lost to Detroit. When they lost to San Francisco 2 years ago in the NFC Championship game. They had a big lead, and they kept going for it on 4th down, and they, turned the ball over on downs and whatnot. So it may have cost them. And I think the lesson there is, when you get to the postseason, you're not playing against teams that they will bury you if you give them an extra down, if you give them field position, and that might be something that stuck with them. I don't know. But if you look at Philadelphia, if you look at the teams that are successful, San Francisco and others, they're going for it on 4th down more than they ever have. And I think I look back to that Kansas City game, and that was the perfect opportunity to say, hey, we scored late. I don't trust the monster on the other sideline. I'm not going to leave it up to a coin flip. And if Todd Bowles had listened to Liam Cohen, and of course, offense coordinators always want to go for it, but Liam Cohen wanted to go for it, right? And he got overruled, which is the head coach's prerogative. But they got down there, and if they'd have gone for 2 and not made it, I don't think there's anybody, including his own team, that would have said a damn thing except good. We went to Kansas City. We took the world champions toe-to-toe. We were on the road. All we needed was 2 yards. And if we can't get 2 yards to win the game, then we don't deserve to win. Because if I had gotten on that plane and you'd have said, you know what, guys, we're going to have one play. If we can make one play from the 2-yard line, we're going to win. You want to go for it or not? Hell yeah. Every guy on that airplane would have said, let's go for it. And Todd Bowles didn't. And I think that's a mentality, right? That's a defensive, that's his mentality. You left that up to a coin toss, and I think the picture of the year was when they lose the coin toss, and look, Baker Mayfield called tails and it was heads or whatever. When they lose the coin toss, the shot of Baker Mayfield throwing his head back in disgust with his eyes closed was the whole season. He knew in that moment that their lack of aggressiveness just probably cost them. He knew it cost them the game. What does, Mahomes do? They win the coin toss. They take the ball. They go down the field and they score a touchdown and the game's over. And, that's on the coach. That's on the mentality. If you tell your players you're going to be aggressive, they'll buy into it. They'll play that way. And I think in today's football, you're going to see more teams going 4 downs because, hey, it's tough to make a team punt after 3. Trying to stop a team 4 downs is, damn near impossible unless you're just, an elite defense. And so with the way they ran the football last year and their ability to run it, with Baker's ability to make plays with his feet in broken situations, with the 3rd down conversion of 51.1, yeah, I think that Bowles needs to be more aggressive, and clearly he needs to improve his clock management. We've got plenty of examples of that. That's got to come from upstairs. That's something that when you're calling the defense and you're a player or two ahead or a series or two ahead, or you have the ball on offense, like something's going to go by you. You know, something's going to skip that you're not going to be paying all your attention to. And we saw Nick Sirianni say, I'm just going to coach the team. You know, I'm going to turn over the offense. I'm going to turn over everything, and I'm just going to manage the team. I don't think Todd will do that. I'm not sure he should do that. You know, if you believe you're the best guy for the job and it's your ass on the line, you're the head coach and you're going to get fired, then I think you should do what you think helps you win, you know, and not leave it up to somebody else. But do I think he would be better at those other things if he wasn't so ingrained in the game planning and the play calling on defense? Absolutely. Absolutely, he would be. But that's not what he's chosen to do. And every year I think he evaluates that. Now, Casey Rogers is now in Detroit. Is he going to hand it to Larry Foote, who was one of the co-defensive coordinators by title only? I don't know. I don't know that he will. And I don't know that he should, right? Because as great as Larry Foote may be, he doesn't have the breadth of experience that Todd Bowles does. So you want your best guy calling the plays, and Todd thinks he's the best guy. But on the other stuff, absolutely. I think he should understand that the NFL today is being more bold, more aggressive, and he should go for it more often. All right, thanks for the questions. We've got spring training starting on today, as a matter of fact, with the Tampa Bay Rays playing against the Yankees. And then, of course, over the weekend, Sunday night, the Lightning are back in action. They're going to play the Seattle Kraken.
Yep, the return of J.J. Moser to the defense, so that's a good sign.
Yeah, I've been seeing that. That should be a big help for them, I think, overall. And then next week, it's the NFL Combine. I mean, there's no time. You know, it used to be you'd have a few weeks between the Super Bowl. You still have a few weeks, but it used to be longer than this. Everything's compressed now. We're already at the Combine phase. Free agency starts in March. So we'll talk about the Combine and what the Bucs are preparing for with free agency. We'll do that on Monday. In the meantime, go see our friends at Breitling Boutique International Plaza Mall. I'm telling you, you're going to be happy with the Swiss watches that they have. That Breitling company has been in business for, I don't know, 140 something years. They've been at International Plaza for over 5. They've got a great collection for men's and women's watches, the chronomats, the Navitimers, the sports watches for women. It's all great stuff, and you're going to be treated like a king, like a professional athlete would. You're going to see some probably Buccaneers or Rays players in there. Just go see them, enjoy the store, and make sure you tell them that you heard about it on Sports Day Tampa Bay. Thanks for listening. For Steve Versnick, I'm Rick Stroud of the Tampa Bay Times. Have a great weekend, everybody.